What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Vacation Rental Revolution podcast. I'm your host, Sean Moore. We're back with Whiskey Wednesday.
Yes,
My main
sir.
man, Jake Sheehy.
Yes, sir.
Where we come in with Whiskey Wednesday is our episode of the week where we come in with hot topics, trending topics that affect your short-term rental investing journey. On Fridays, we come in with our expert corner interviews. But as a reminder, I ask you guys favors at the end of every episode, but I'm going to ask you a favor at the first of the episode.
Come on now.
Jake just showed me that 56% of our listeners on these platforms are not subscribed to our channel. Guys, if you're listening and you're an active listener, we'd love you to subscribe and follow us on whatever platform you're watching or listening on, so that we don't have more than half of our people that listen to us regularly and don't subscribe. Those subscriptions matter a ton. It helps us continue to reinvest into the show because we don't run ads or sponsorships. It helps the show grow. So if you are one of those listeners that is active but you don't subscribe, please do us a favor and subscribe. Those things help us. And then next, Jake's been posting some of our properties, just some little bits of information, not a lot of details on Instagram, just a photo of a property, some revenue potential, and allowing our audience to get more information. So if you want more information about properties, there's some really good buys out there right now, some things that we're looking at. Email us at support@vodyssey.com and we'll get that taken care of. The next thing is, we also just launched a Vacation Rental Revolution Clips podcast.
Yep.
So these are short, like topic-based clips from our regular episodes. So if you're like, hey, listen, I want to subscribe and I just want to hear these very short, sweet, topic-based points that we're making, Jake is clipping those up, and we have its own individual, dedicated podcast for clips, right?
Yep. Yes, it is. Just scroll down and you'll find it. If it's like, maybe from 3 minutes to maybe 8 minutes long, just little bite-sized clips that someone can get a little sample of.
Yes.
If they want to listen
so
to
if you like listening to the podcast in pieces, just the topics you want to listen to, go check out that new one. And then finally, tax season.
Yes, sir.
People are in the middle of seeing how much they owe from last year. So you guys that have not been investing in short-term rentals, or you're thinking about investing in short-term rentals, now is this time to start thinking about that pain of paying the taxes for 2025. We don't want that pain to be next year when you're paying taxes in 2026 because you didn't do anything. If you want to learn about the short-term rental tax loophole with short-term rental investing, again, email us at support@vodyssey.com. We'll set up a time where we can jump on and show you how to mitigate all those taxes that you're buying by buying quality assets, building a portfolio of cash flow producing properties that actually reduce your taxes so you don't have to pay.
Come on.
Let Uncle Sam supplement that portfolio growth. So
Exciting.
that's kind of our
The agenda.
the agenda items, the housekeeping items.
Yeah.
So what do we actually have on our agenda today to talk about?
Man, okay, we got one that's happening right now.
right.
Spring break. A lot of people
spring
don't
break,
know.
right in the middle.
March
started.
14th, April 3rd is kind of that little window that we're working with. And so there's a lot of headlines. There's a lot of things saying that there's a lot of negatives, right? If anyone goes on any of these websites, they're going to see some crazy stuff. They'll see, let's just name some. NBC News, flying in America is about to get more expensive and less fun. USA Today, government shutdown hits spring break travel with hours-long TSA lines. Yahoo, airline ticket prices are suddenly soaring. We have all these things that people are avoiding crowds and saving for travel. They're not going. We have gas prices. Last month, it was $2.92, and now the current national average is $3.71. You have all these things that I would say, I guess, the media or other people are saying that, it's really negative. This is your peak season, and people probably aren't going to be coming anymore, or they're holding off and all these things. And so I'm kind of curious, maybe an investor sees these headlines and they're thinking to themselves, okay, well, maybe I need to kind of bunker down, doomsday prep in a way. Do I need to have like a nest egg or some kind of savings that I've been pulling off month after month to have it ready for these bad times? Or, should you be putting money aside, or what do you think about this?
Well, one, we have to think of because headlines don't dictate reality. Like, we should know that as consumers of media and information, that headlines are not really what's going on. You really have to figure out and look and see, is it really going to affect all this stuff? We have a lot of things going on. Like, you've got the government shutdown affecting airline travel wait times to get in. Those are realities, right? We've got gas prices going up because of the war in Iran. That's a reality. We've got all the geopolitical things going on in different areas. That is a reality. Maybe some of the Mexico travel being affected.
Right.
So some of those are realities, but how is it actually affecting the consumer? We talked about how resilient the American consumer is, how much we actually work through this stuff, and is it really affecting the markets? Now, the media would love to have you believe that the sky is falling every single day, that we are at the end, right? It's going to be, it's over tomorrow and we don't know what to do about it. Like those are what the headlines, those negative information sells, negative media sells. And so those businesses are never going to get in the business of spreading positive news or even just reality, right? I mean, we're not even, we have to take whatever reality is and highlight the parts that the sky is falling. So when we actually go look at spring break travel, because I actually have, this is the business we're in, so I actually happen to know some of the stats and some of the demand. Demand is still very, very strong despite all this stuff, and we've been watching it really closely because obviously in the short-term rental hospitality world, we rely on that demand and how much the consumer is traveling and spending and everything else, and we're seeing a lot of really positive signs. I saw the airline travel. And this is just barely updated this last week. This last Friday was like they're anticipating 100 well, you got highlighted right now, 171 million travelers to take to the skies between March 1st and April 30th, marking a 4% increase year over year.
Yep.
So more expensive, longer wait times, going to be more of a pain in the butt to jump on that airline. Yep. It's going to cost you more. Yet we're the consumer's like, yeah, we're still going, right? Hey, listen, we still want to go travel. Here we
go.
Yeah,
check that one out.
Yeah, Orlando International Airport said in total more than 7.4 million passengers are expected. This is going to mark an 8% increase over 2025, which was also a record year. So continuing to set records again in this space, and I kind of feel like a broken record sometimes talking about it, but here's why you have to really look at the data. And this goes for everything. This just happens to be data that we track and follow all the time. And we also track and follow the headlines. And the headlines are always going to be the sky is falling, right? And so if you're going to live your life on headlines, you're going to be depressed. Whatever drug you take for depression is probably going to be in your medicine cabinet, because that's a pretty sobering thing to always wake up to and read these headlines, regardless of what you're reading, because negative news sells. And so you have to peel back a few layers of the onion and say, is the demand really sliding? And right now, we're not seeing that. We're seeing that spring break travel is really strong despite all of those things. It is costing more. You are waiting in line. There are geopolitical things going on that are affecting where and how we're going to travel. Yet we're saying, hey, listen, we still want to go. And so, you were mentioning some of the trends and how they're traveling, how people are staying, and where they're going. So let's dive into some of that.
Okay. I mean, I think let me throw some other little stats out real fast. Okay, we also have car rentals, 4.8% increase in growth. We see that national parks saw searches for stays up 35%. We have AAA last survey, 5,000 U.S. adults shows 39% plan to take more vacations in 2026 compared to 2025. I mean, once again, there's other things. I mean, if you kind of are like cutting through the noise and you're trying to find the articles, there's some that say both, really. But it seems like the main ones are always sky is falling, and that's always a tough one. I guess you mentioned standing out in these like crowded markets. If a lot of people are going, is this like music to our ears, or is this music across the board, you think? Just because there's so many travelers going, it continues to grow year over year. Does this mean that even middle of the market, lower people in the market are still going to have a boost, or is this really good for us?
I mean, if you looked up the actual, so the middle of the market is affected by RevPAR, which is revenue per available rental. That has actually been going up the last couple of years. It went up in 2025. I think it's expected to go up in 2026. So that does affect kind of that middle of the market. When you continually when we set demand records every single year, which is the dollars the consumer is spending on this space, every part of the market is helped, but it's not always proportionate, right? And so what you have to really pay attention to is where is that growth happening? And when RevPAR goes up, that means kind of the whole market is going up a little bit, right? It's distributed a little bit across the whole board. But if you start to see the top of the market getting an unfair share of that demand,
right?
Because there's more properties that are doing a better job, and the consumer has more choices at the top. They spend more money at the top of the market. We know that's the case in short-term rentals,
right?
And so as more people raise the bar and get into the top of the market, that still leaves that middle of the market struggling and the bottom of the market struggling. The top of the market continues to, and we see this in most markets, that done correctly, playing the game correctly,
Right.
you know, that's where the disproportionate amount of money is being spent by the consumer. And we notice that when we really dive into the microeconomics of the demand, where the consumer's spending it, what they're choosing, why they're choosing it, all of those different things are super important to know. We're looking at like this overall trend, which is still a very good indicator of what's going on in consumer mindset. And so I want to go back to, you said, you know, there's articles that kind of say both, good and bad, and you can kind of justify both. You can justify almost anything in this world, in your life, right? And so if I'm sitting here and I own a property and I'm not booked and it's spring break and I say, hey, listen, my property's not booked, I'm going to look at these headlines and say, that's why I'm not booked. Oh, you know what? It's not booked. But what if I show you the other part of it? The demand is skyrocketing. More consumers are taking to the skies. More consumers are taking to the roads, right? Rental cars are up. More people are choosing drive-to destinations. And so when both aspects of travelers are going up, what's your excuse now that you're not booked, right? The only reason you're not booked is you didn't choose to play the game the correct way, right? You didn't choose to play to win. You didn't choose to get into the game and give the consumer a reason to book you above and beyond everybody else. The sky is not always going to be as rosy as it is right now. I mean, we have seen record demand year over year, and we're anticipating 10% growth for the foreseeable future. What if that doesn't happen? Right? And you have to understand, hey, listen, what if demand actually falls? But there's still a lot of consumers coming out here. But what if the demand and supply ratio is not as favorable, right? Maybe supply starts to go up and demand starts to go down. All of a sudden, that's not real favorable for us. There are still going to be people in that game that win. And so my challenge always is to figure out how to play the game to win, regardless of what's going on the outside. Right now, you have no excuse to not win in this game, in my opinion. My opinion is there is so much money being spent by the consumer. It is one of the trends that we were talking about earlier last week on my which fits right into this, is that the kind of the trend is group travel, you know, multi-generational travel, group friends travel. Like that's become more and more of a trend. And that is thanks to short-term rentals, because you have larger properties, or even just 3 and 4 bedroom. You can split it with somebody, right? You can travel with friends. You can have multi-generational travel. That's a travel trend that's happening right now. All of those things line up in the favor of short-term rental operators and saying, hey, listen, there's a lot of demand out there. There's a lot of consumers that want to do this. If you're not winning right now, you need to look in the mirror and say why, and ask yourself the question why. And the question, and I would challenge everybody, the answer to that question of why is not what you're reading in the headlines right now. Because the headlines want you to believe that you have no way to win. You have, you know, the gas prices are up. Airline travel's a pain in the butt. People are waiting in lines. People are going to stop traveling. All this stuff. They're trying to paint. The reason they get away with this is because they allow us to paint our own picture of paint our own reality. Right? We can read as a consumer. They have this really negative headline, and then they say this could affect this, this, and this. Maybe this is going to happen, right? Maybe people are going to stop traveling less. Maybe it's going to affect this stuff. They don't say it does when you read the articles. They say, here's what's happening, which it is. That's a reality. And then they make you paint this picture. Then they plant these seeds of this could happen. Maybe this is going to be here. And then we cultivate those seeds till they grow into this very negative reality that's actually far removed from the actual reality. And the actual reality is, there's a lot of good reasons on the back end of this business to make a lot of money. And a lot of ways to make a lot of money in this business, but not because it's easy, but it's choosing the road less traveled. It's choosing to understand consumer behavior. It's choosing to set properties up so that they get chosen above and beyond somebody else's. And that's not what you're going to read in the headlines. And so, I love this topic today where you bring this up, and it's like, hey, listen, spring break travelers getting affected. This might be a bad year for travelers. Do we need to plan for that? You know, the slow period and save some money and this and that and the other. The reality is, this is looking to be a record year of spring break traveler, despite all of those things, right? And so I think that it's always a good conversation and a lesson for us to say, hey, listen, what reality are you going to buy into?
Right.
And what reality are you going to paint and really, allow yourself the excuses of, that's why that's why it's not working.
Right.
Right.
Let me read this real fast. Group and multi-generational travel is increasing, with 57% of parents planning trips with extended family. Just touching on that, what you were talking about. Now I'm going to play the role of an investor who's maybe the first time listening to our podcast, and they're hearing this and they think, okay, Sean, I want to know how to get my unfair share. A lot of people are going. I help me out here. Should I be sending out a newsletter? Should I really be focused on Google Ads right now and pushing my property? What am I going to do that's really going to help me capture this new growth of people coming?
So what's going to help you is latching onto a different mindset that I actually have to do and operate differently. This is not a game of one silver bullet. So your Facebook ads campaign is not going to save you. A newsletter in and of itself is not going to save you. This is a game of 100 golden BBs, or really 1,000 golden BBs. And what that means is there is a way to operate, and it's a whole bunch of different things that all accumulate to a big unfair advantage, right? And so it's not a one thing that you're going to do differently. Everybody's situation is different. Every property is different. Every market's different. We're going to look at it. Now, there's fundamental aspects of what we do in the acquisition phase, in the marketing or the setup and management phase, and in the marketing phase, right? And so we have these fundamental things we're doing. But again, it's 100 golden BBs that all accumulate to one massive advantage. And so what should I do as a new investor or an investor that maybe is struggling is I have to look in the mirror and say, am I willing to do something different? Because what I'm doing currently doesn't work.
Right.
Or what I'm doing, maybe I'm brand new and maybe your currently doesn't work. I would choose to find somebody that has a process and a plan that actually has and understands all those little nuances to give you this one big massive advantage. And so the answer to the question is, maybe both of those. Yeah. But you don't even, that's like the end of the game. That's like the end of the road. But and people always think that marketing is going to save them, and the problem is they're missing the boat from the very beginning. Maybe they don't have the right property in the right location. Naturally, a lot of people do have that. And so that's not as big of a deal as like, it's a massively big deal if you have that, right? So if you miss on the right property in the right location, it's very difficult to maximize that property. You just have to sell it, right? So that's a massive mistake. But naturally, people instinctively buy pretty good properties in pretty good areas. Right. Where they miss is that middle. They do not understand how to set it up, create these immersive experiences, articulate a really great experience, be able to set it up to deliver that great experience. Because I have to do all of that way before I can start to market this property, right? And so the marketing side of it, you can't, you put lipstick on a pig, it's still a pig, right?
I love that saying, dude. I love it.
And so it's still, and that's what marketing is. And so we always back way up and say, first and foremost, do we have the right property in the right area? What kind of potential do I have to make money in this area? If the answer is not much, there's not a lot. We don't go to that next step because the potential is not there for me to make money here. I got to get rid of that property and start over. Most of the time, that's not a problem. When it is a problem, it's a big problem, right? Because I can't recover from it. I have to get rid of the property and start over. The second problem, we start to say, hey, how's this set up? Do I have a target audience? Have I created an immersive experience for that audience? Do I have the management in place to deliver that experience? And then now that I have all of that, have I invested in the marketing assets to help me articulate that? And then I go to my marketing strategy, right? Newsletters, Facebook ads, optimizing my listing on and taking advantage of how to optimize on Airbnb and Vrbo. All of those things on the marketing side. So, but you take one step at a time. So long-winded answer is you have to dial in all of that stuff. It's not one or two things that you're going to do.
Okay. I mean, that's an interesting one. Can we push these people anywhere that maybe they
absolutely
need help?
Webinar, right? I do a weekly webinar every Tuesday, every Tuesday and every Thursday. I do a weekly webinar. Do you have the link in the bio?
I do have the link in the bio.
Or whatever, the show notes or whatever wherever you put the links.
Scroll down, click the link, the webinar link in the bio.
And what I do is I go through all three of those major phases. I show you the major points in those phases. And so, if somebody is like brand new, or if you're in the game and you're like, I need to optimize, go check out the webinar. I mean, you can register for it. It's Tuesdays at noon, I think, and then on Thursdays, I changed it to where
I probably can.
I started. I used to do Thursdays at 2:00, and now I believe I got to look at my calendar. I believe I'm doing them at 6:00 now, and so I tried to do an evening one. And so last week, actually, I just changed. So just look at the link in the bio. It'll tell you when they're you're pulling it up right now.
Yeah. Wow.
Doesn't show us you have to put your information. Yeah, put that in. Let's see when. I'm pretty sure it's noon. Yeah, noon on Tuesday.
Yeah, here we go.
Or 6:00 on Thursday.
There you go.
Yep.
There
so
you
that
go.
2:00 still on there. I hope they don't have me down for 2. If they do, I'm gonna have to be doing 2 on Thursday. I better talk to the marketing department.
Well, go sign up for a webinar.
Yeah.
Get that. All right. So we kind of answered the question as someone who's outside the group and they don't know.
Yeah.
Let's transition to someone who's a part of Vodyssey. They have the great stuff and they really want to maximize during this time. All right, we're gonna hit some stuff for them. So maybe they're thinking here's a useful question. Should they push shorter stays? What about longer stays? Should they go book out the whole high price, book out the whole week of spring break, or should you do 2 little separate trips? I always am curious if like the pricing matters on things like that, or if that's helpful for them.
Pricing definitely matters. I don't try to I don't push for longer stays. I let the market dictate that. I believe that consumers naturally pick longer stays during those peak seasons. We've shown that to be true over the last 20 years of doing this, that we usually just have 2-day minimums. And so sometimes we get a spring break where you'll have 2 groups in, that are coming in, 2 short stays, fine with us.
Right.
Whether it's a short stay or a long stay, it doesn't really matter to us.
Yeah.
So we usually allow the consumers to choose length of stay. We feel like that maximizes our properties. When I give the consumer the most amount of choices, I have the best chance of maximizing and getting a booking, right? And so when I make it flexible for them and I give them a lot of choices, I'm going to have a better chance of getting a booking.
I love it. Okay, now what about this one? Spring break. In my mind, I immediately go like high school or college student, right? They're out, they're wanting to party, they want to have a good time, Florida beach, woohoo. What's your stance on saying no to a guest? What's your stance on maybe they book your property and they just turned maybe the age limit or whatever it is? Would you ever say no to them? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, we say no to guests.
Do you kind of vet them out a little bit?
So we'll try to vet them. We look at their reviews in the past. If they're brand new, they don't have reviews. We usually don't do that. age of 25, we're trying to have that as our minimum. But we've had younger groups of younger kids that were really upfront and they're like, hey, it's a group of. We're just getting out of we're getting our high school trip or whatever, right? They're 18, 20 years old in that range, and they've reached out and said, hey, here's who we are. We're really responsible, this and that. And they were upfront about who they're, and I have a tendency to lean toward, let them in. Let's see how they do. And they were actually great guests. Okay. It does make us nervous, but where you will naturally be able to weed that out when you have premium properties. When you have expensive properties.
Interesting point here.
That party crowd that's like just trying to sleep a bunch of people in a property and they're splitting it up with their buddies and they don't have, you got people sleeping on couches and floors and blow up mattresses. They're not looking for the nicest properties. Right. And so they're not looking for the premium properties and they don't want to pay that premium dollar amount. So every one of our properties operates in the top couple percent in their market, and that's in revenue and nightly rate. And so you will naturally weed out a lot of that party crowd just by virtue of being expensive.
Right. Okay, so then let's go into this. A lot of people, we've talked about AI tools and kind of those blanket pricing strategies. Is this, once again, you think, we've talked about the platforms where they can kind of adjust in. Everyone knows that this is a nice time, so prices rise. Do you think you can leave it, or should you go in and do some analyzation right now?
Usually, if you're an established property, usually those price optimization tools are going to do a pretty good job because you've got your rules already set and established in there with baselines and everything else as being a premium property. So it will push those prices up by virtue of the demand in the market on the nights that are high demand nights. And so they do a good job of that. If I'm a brand new listing, I a lot of times get very involved on the manual side. And so a lot of times I actually restrict what those price optimization tools can do. on the front side of something. So if I'm a new listing going into spring break or summertime, I've got a lot more manual involvement. Once I'm an established listing, I've launched, I've optimized, I've started to maximize that property. A lot of times I've got the right constraints built into and the right rules built into my price optimization tools. So I never suggest just setting and forgetting price optimization tools. You have to put parameters in them in order to use them as the revenue management tools that they were meant to be.
Love it. Okay, I'm getting some good stuff here as I'm moving along here. Okay, let's go into the next point. We have a couple more house rules. This is a time maybe of a little bit of partying. Is this a time to constrict the house rules, or is this a time to kind of let them? Hey, man, you know what this is? Let them fly a little bit. Let them have a good time. This is the 1 week of the year. Come on.
No, I say rules are rules, right? I don't make them stricter.
All
I don't
right.
make them a lot easier, right? And so it is. We have house rules for a reason. We're going to stick by them. And we don't change them. I mean, you got to realize whether it's spring break or whether it's a vacation or whether it's a celebration of some sort, it's still a party, right? And so people are coming to enjoy themselves at your property. You have house rules built for a reason, and it doesn't really matter when they're coming in. We're not gonna be more lenient. We're not gonna be more strict.
Okay, I love it. Now these 2 points, I think, kind of maybe in a little bit weave in and out. So let's kind of tiptoe on this one here. But I want to talk about first impressions and your top of mind campaigns and your newsletters and things like that. I'm curious on, in my opinion, when I think spring break, I always think around the same locations. I know everyone loved Panama City Beach where I'm from. Everyone loved it. That was like the staple. Everyone went there. Or it was either that or like Daytona Beach. I know a lot of people love Seaside or like I think it's like 30A, I guess. Yep. Those are like their main thing. They go there almost every year. So is this in a way that you could really do great on the first impression? If it smells nice, maybe there's music, maybe you have that nice little gift bag, or is this more of a thing that you've built a list of credible people, you've kept them with your marketing, your newsletters, your top of mind campaigns, and now you've kind of built a business here? What do you think on obtaining a new one, or just kind of trying to keep the people coming back?
Right. So one, marketing is about a three-legged triangle, right? Or a three-legged stool. Attract a customer, convert a customer, retain a customer. Attract is brand new people. Convert, I got to convert new people and I got to convert old people. And retain is getting those repeat people coming back, right? And so you're always playing both. You're always running down both roads all the time. I got to attract new people and I've got to retain the people that have come in. The more I can retain people and get them to come back, because I had a great first impression. They had a great stay, and people are creatures of habit, right? They're like, hey, listen, I don't want to risk this next year. I had an amazing time this year. I want to duplicate that and replicate it. We're coming back, right? And so that is the lifeblood of any business, is repeat customers. Short-term rentals are no different. And so you should have campaigns set up to stay top of mind, right? But you also are always running down the road of attracting new customers, right? On the OTAs and running your own ads and being able to say, hey, listen, we've got this great place to stay. I know you're thinking about PCB, or you're thinking about 30A or wherever you're going, Daytona, and you haven't you've been here, you're interested in here, but you've never stayed in our place. I'm going to show you why I'm going to do a good job of articulating why you should choose me above and beyond everybody else. So it's running down both of those roads always at the same time. Any business relies on new customers, but the new customers are way more expensive and a lot harder to convert than old customers, especially if you've done a good job of delivering an amazing experience. Now, if you didn't do a good job of delivering an amazing experience, those old customers are almost impossible to convert. You're not getting a second chance, right? And so if you're doing everything you should be doing, that retention group, the old customers coming back and rebooking, become the lifeblood of your business 2 or 3 years, into the game, right? Because now you've had enough repeat customers that you can become, I've had properties that were waitlist only properties only with repeat customers. So we're not even really attracting new customers on these properties because they're self-sufficient at that stage. That's a really well-run business when you don't have to go acquire any new customers. Now, but the reality is most of us are running down both of those roads at the same time always. Attract, convert, retain, attract, convert, retain. And then ultimately those retains start taking time on the calendar, and we don't have to attract as many. And and as we have as more and more of those repeat customers come through, and I've only got 365 days a year to sell, ultimately we start to become, wait list only, where you can't book that property. And on a spring break or something that's like a busy time of year like that, those are your first weeks that you will be starting to have repeat customers that are coming back every spring break, right? And so that's what but it's a game you're always playing.
Okay, I don't know if this is a bad question. This may be a dumb question, so be patient with me. Would it in a way almost be like I don't know if this is the right term, shooting yourself in the foot to have these repeat customers, because you don't get newer reviews if they've already reviewed you one time, so you don't really get to build up your review section. And do they ever think, well, I want to be grandfathered in at the price? Do they think, well, this year it wasn't expensive, this time last year? Would they? Is that ever an issue?
Yeah, it can be. The reviews, not usually. Okay. Most of your repeat customers will still leave you another review.
Okay.
Especially if they're repeat and you tell them, hey, listen, you guys are amazing. We're so glad you came back. Reviews are always important. Every time you stay, if you give us a review, those things are always helpful. The reviews aren't as big of a deal.
Okay.
The pricing, depending on how you're going to do it, right? So what we used to do on the property I was referring to as a waitlist only property is we would tell people, hey, listen, you can book it now for next year. We've got X amount of an increase. There would always be some sort of an increase, and we would a lot of times keep it a standard increase, like a 3 to 5% increase.
Okay.
And the benefit of booking a year in advance. So hey, you're leaving. If you want to reserve this week for next year because it's most likely going to be gone, you can do so at this price. And so they would, price never was really an issue. If people wait, we know as a consumer that hey, listen, if I wait and I try to rebook, prices tomorrow are not going to be the same as prices today. So you don't get that pushback or that feedback or that complaint very often on the pricing side. And on the reviews, you just got to handle it to let them know, hey, listen, I know you've given us a review last year, but we still love a review this year. And now going back to, you said, can you shoot yourself in the foot? Yeah. When you start to get a lot of repeat customers and you start to get a lot of you're retaining a lot of the customers and you're doing a good job, it will cannibalize the new customers you can sell to, essentially because they're taking so much time on the calendar that your new customers don't have the best times available, right? And so you can actually shoot yourself in the foot on being able to acquire those new customers and convert those new customers, because just by virtue of the fact that there's nothing available for them, because your repeat customers are going to take the best times, right? And so they're going to come back, and especially during your peak seasons. Again, I said we are creatures of habit, especially when we travel in certain ways. We go back to the same spots over and over, right? You're a very regional customer on the spring break markets you mentioned. That Southeast loves the panhandle of Florida, right? And so they love the Florida beaches. And so it seems like everybody in Georgia, Tennessee, all those markets, they're going straight down to the panhandle of Florida, right? And so and so everywhere. So but like where I'm out west in Utah, we're not going there. We're going somewhere else, right? And so we're usually going to Phoenix or Scottsdale, or we're going down to St. George, down by Zion National Park, some of those markets to get away into the desert. Like the desert is kind of our beaches, right? We're trying to drive to a warm climate. And that's really what you guys are doing too. You're saying, hey, listen, we're going to the beach. It's starting to warm. This is the opening for summer. Yeah. And we're kicking it off down there.
Man. Okay. Now I want to I'm curious about this one. We've heard, or at least I've heard different styles of you should maximize during your main season, or you should try and extend this. You should try and draw this thing out as long as you can to make as much money as you can during this. Or do you have a thought process on, you have pretty much March 14th to April 3rd. That's usually how schools are let out. That's usually when people are going. Should you just try and push as hard as you can, prices now and stuff like that? Or should you try and, I don't know. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, 100%.
Okay.
You're not going to extend spring break season with one property, right? It would be great if I could extend the seasonality in my market and by having some sort of effect on the market with one property. You're not going to do it, despite what everybody tells you, to try to extend your season. So what you got to do is say, hey, listen, how can I maximize my earning potential when everybody's coming here. And that is pushing your prices accordingly during those times. Now, you can only push your prices if you give the consumer a reason to pay you more.
Yep.
Right. And so you have to make sure that you're doing your job to be able to command higher prices. But yes, the answer to that is I need to maximize the money I make during the period of time when the consumer is spending the most amount of money, right?
I'm totally with you.
They're there all year long, but you're not going to extend your peak season rates outside of the peak season. It's the peak season for a reason. And the reason is because there's a lot of people coming in spending money there.
Yeah.
And so you need to maximize during that time, but you maximize by giving the consumer a compelling reason to pay you more than everybody else. And if you're not doing that, you're not going to maximize it. You're not going to, the consumer capitalism is unforgiving as it comes, period, right? The markets are about as unforgiving of a place to operate as there could be. They're not going to reward you unless you do the right things to be rewarded. And so the market is, if you just have a beautiful home and everybody else has a beautiful home, you become one of many. When you become one of many, the consumer says, who's the cheapest? Where can I get the best discount? And so that comes into play. If I am not one of many and I'm operating in a category of one and I look different and I give the consumer a reason to pay me more, they're happy to do so. They tell us all the time in consumer reports saying, hey, listen, we're not shopping on price. We are looking for the best cost versus value, but that cost versus value is what are you delivering for me for the money that I'm paying? And I will pay you more if you deliver more, right? And so, and more doesn't always mean like more in and of itself maybe is not the right term. It's I need something that gives me a compelling reason that's unique, different, personalized something. It could be, maybe it is more, but it could be one of many of things that the consumer is willing to pay you more above and beyond somebody else. So long-winded answer is you're not going to extend that peak season. You're not going to affect the market in and of itself on how much money the consumer's spending at any given time. So you need to say, what I can affect is how this property is set up, what I'm articulating, what I'm delivering, so the consumer wants to pay me more and actually maximize that asset while they're paying money.
Okay, this is my last one here.
Right.
So take a second and maybe I kind of wrote my answer here, but I was thinking the most valuable way to grab these people, a little golden nugget, maybe a little something extra. I came up with your magnet photo, your lead photo. Yeah. Something that's going to be the scroll stopper. I thought of when our previous boardroom HQ, you showed it with all the pools and then boom, that orange room. Yep. And that was a great scroll stopper. Is there a little golden nugget that you can think of that you could pass on that maybe do this, to our listeners, maybe do this and it could help you?
Yeah.
I think of that. What do you think?
So think about the world we live in as a consumer. We are inundated with messages, with all kinds of marketing messages, with social media messages, just everything, right? We just have all kinds of information coming to us at all times.
Right.
So at whatever stage of the process you're in, how can you build in pattern interrupts? You mentioned the magnet photo. You mentioned, if everything is showing me pools, and this is the example we did, and then I come out with a bedroom photo that's really bold and bright and a totally different color than the pools. In fact, a contrasting color, right?
Yeah.
And then the pools, all the pools were blues and greens, and we came out with this orange room, right? Yeah. And that's a pattern interrupt. And when I can give the consumer a pattern interrupt, it causes them to pause.
Yeah.
And it causes them to think, what is that? And then what I'm trying to do is evoke that next action. Hey, listen, what is that? I'm going to click on it. Then I've got to give them another reason to dive deeper, right? And so when it comes to any stage of the process, I need to give them something that seems different and something that is going to keep their attention to where if it's all the same and everything's blending in and we're just getting hit with all this stuff, and then I have this pattern interrupt, it causes me to pause and think about anything in your own life. Like if we were sitting here and we're having this conversation, you and I are talking, we're talking about all this stuff, and all of a sudden we hear this big loud boom in the other room. We're like, whoa, what was that? Right? It's a pattern interrupt. I need to figure out how to build in those pattern interrupts throughout every stage of the process for the consumer. We actually try to do it while they're staying at our properties because we want to evoke certain emotions while they're there as well. And some of those pattern interrupts are the scent machines, right? You walk in the door just like you would at any 5-star hotel, and they've got their own scent. You walk in and you're like, oh, what is that? That smell? It's a pattern interrupt, right? And so we build them in throughout. So as a business owner, as an investor, as a host, trying to build in the pattern interrupts from the very beginning stages of the search to the end of when they stay with you is how are you building in these things that are different and unique that gives the consumer, one, it becomes memorable, right? It doesn't fit in. It becomes, we start to ingrain it into our memory. When we have all these pattern interrupts, we start to remember things a lot better. And so you remember that part of the conversation on an 8-hour workshop. Yeah. That was something you remember because it was different, right?
Yeah, it was huge to me. It was, I mean, I just love the way you called it. You said, look at all these pools. Everything was nice and light blue. And then boom, with this orangey sunset room, it was clearly a scroll stopper. What about like someone putting like spring break exclusive or spring break something in their headline?
The problem with something like that is while it may look like a pattern interrupt on the platform, it looks very, very markety and very like promotional on a and so we're still kind of used to seeing all those promotions. If I'm scrolling on Instagram or on my feed on Facebook or wherever on my internet, I see promotions all day long, and that looks really promotional. Wow. We don't like, as consumers, we don't like you to tell us you're selling me something, right? Even though we're always buying, we always want to be sold. We don't like to be told we're being sold, right? And so it becomes a little bit kind of cringy. And so I don't like that type of a pattern interrupt. I want the pattern interrupt to be a more natural pattern interrupt and a positive pattern interrupt, right? Because you can have positive and negative pattern interrupts. The negative headlines we started with, those are pattern interrupts. We know that we will stop and focus on negative information, and we know that becomes a pattern interrupt. We want to click more. What does that mean? What does that look like? And so that's an example of a negative pattern interrupt. When you're in business, I try to choose the more positive pattern interrupts. They become memorable and they work just as well.
Okay, that's everything we did. We hit 40 minutes. That's all we got.
That's it. Today. All right. Well, good stuff.
Good stuff, man.
Yeah.
We broke
Spring
it all down.
break. God, we're getting there. Right?
It's almost summertime. Make some money.
I feel like it's been spring break all year, all winter long in Utah. We've had it's been
like
spring.
80 degrees.
80 degrees. They say heat wave out west. They said that like many markets are going to get 100 degrees like 2 months ahead of schedule. The first 100-degree temperatures they're going to hit like 2 months ahead of when they normally would hit 100 degrees. Crazy. It must be the desert markets like Phoenix, Vegas, some of those markets. Crazy.
2 months early is crazy. Well, hold on, is that good or bad news? Does that mean you've extended your season now?
No, you extended the warm weather. But, hey, people still only get off the 3-day weekends on spring break or whatever, off for the week on spring break.
Okay.
And so, yeah, your season's gonna. The only thing that I've ever seen extend a season, which was the never-ending summer, was COVID. Okay, it felt like that extended the peak seasons. That's the only time I've ever seen peak seasons extend, and we've had warm spells and cold spells throughout. The 20 years I've been investing, at least. Okay. And so, but that was one thing that actually extended the seasons because. Everybody was work at home, everybody's remote, so you could kind of go wherever you wanted and do whatever you wanted, and still clock a time card and get a paycheck, because you're working remotely. And so that's the only thing I ever saw extend like the never-ending summer.
Well, there you go.
You tried.
I tried.
You tried to extend it. Yeah. No, we're still working. All right, guys, we're gonna wrap it up. As always, 56% of you listening to this are not subscribed. If you would subscribe, do us that favor. Those things are very, very helpful. We do appreciate you spending your time with us. It is very valuable. And to help us on the show and the growth of the show, we don't run ads or sponsorships, so that subscription does help us. And that way, these platforms will share it with people just like you. And the final, most important thing I ask you at the end of every episode is to go pick that one thing you can do today to start building that life you don't want to take a vacation from. Cheers, my friends.
Cheers.